Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, and this is your Cannabis Business Podcast. Today, we're here live at the World Trade Center in Seattle. I'm here with Jim Makoso, founder of Lucid Oils. Jim is a cannabis extraction processing professional in the cannabis industry. In January 2015, he co-founded Lucid Lab Group, a cannabis extraction technology company based in Seattle. Jim's vision was to create a scientific approach to cannabis essential oil processing by utilizing customized capital equipment in combination with proven scientific processes. By taking a quality-centric approach, Jim has created a company culture known throughout the industry for quality in product and process. Prior to co-founding Lucid, Jim engaged Vuber Technologies as an angel investor in January of 2014. He joined the business management team, where he held the position of vice president responsible for strategic partnerships and business development until October of 2015. He remained on the board of directors until December of 2016, and by spearheading a business model focused on product development while maintaining a customer-first approach, Vuber has become a leading vaporizer company with strong partnerships that include manufacturers, cultivators, processors, and retailers throughout the U.S. Prior to his involvement in the cannabis industry, Jim was a finance professional in New York for 6 years. He holds an economics degree from Stony Brook University with a focus in business finance. Jim, thanks for being on board.
Thanks for having me.
So the process a cultivator selects will have an impact on quality, yields, productivity, and the legal safety requirements. So the cannabis industry does a poor job at meeting the needs of incoming mainstream consumer. The mainstream consumer expects a predictable product that's clearly labeled by effect. Instead, they're generally forced to choose a product based on unclear strain names. So the selection often leads to an unexpected or undesirable experience that keeps a novice user from returning to the cannabis space. Cannabis companies need to learn from other well-established CPG industries, and they can take that first step by creating precision formulations. A normal extraction process comprises several procedures, including the collection and authentication of plant material and drying, size reduction, extraction, filtration, concentration of drying, and reconstitution. However, extraction quality depends on various factors, such as plant parts used as an initial material, the solvents used, the extraction method, and the plant materials, solvent ratios, etc. So with the advancement of science and technology, remarkable progress has been made in the field of plant extraction with the discoveries of high-quality herbal products. As a result, modern methods of plant extraction are more effective over conventional methods. And so I'm wondering, with the help of this technology, with consuming edibles utilizing nanotechnologies, will it increase the bioavailability at the blood-brain barrier to speed up the onset of its effects?
Yeah, no doubt. And this kind of touches on what you were saying about last product, about having, this ring on, let's say, drinks, this little ring on the top of a drink. And that ring exists from a product that has not been fully immersed in a beverage. As we know, cannabinoids are not water soluble. Right? So they're hydrophobic, they're lipophilic, they like to be in fat, which is why, when you make, let's say, an edible, and if you're using butter, back in the day, we used to make these brownies, and my friends would leave the weed in there. So you would be like eating brownies with weed in it. And I would always take like a sock, like a church sock, which my friends would be like, oh, that's gross. I was like, I wouldn't say it's as gross as eating weed, like the plant itself. It's not a very good tasting plant if you've ever tried it. Very, very bitter and spicy. Anyways, I would strain out the butter or I'd strain out the weed so that the only thing in the butter was really just the oil, which still had a very strong taste, but wouldn't have weed in it. That butter will be immersed into your brownie mix such that if you put a lot of oil in there, yeah, maybe you'll see it. But in the case of a beverage, something that's water soluble, because these compounds, cannabinoids, are not water soluble, you need to encapsulate them in some way, in something that could be soluble in water. But essentially, the nanotechnology that you're talking about is where we're taking this molecule, trying to get it to the smallest size possible, encapsulating it in something that's water soluble, such that when it is poured into water or some type of water soluble product, any beverage, you can't see it. It's essentially immersed, or it's immersed in the water, but with such small particle size, it looks like it's been emulsified or solubilized. That's never going to happen. It's what you're really seeing is somebody who knew what they were doing and got it to such a small particle size that you cannot see it. and it will not come out of solution. So there are some companies that are really good at that. There are other companies that are not as good as that. You know, a popular thing that you'll see some people do is they'll emulsify or they'll solubilize the oil in alcohol and add alcohol to their mix, because alcohol and water are miscible, and then they'll see the cannabinoids kind of come out of solution, and that's where you get this ring. The bottom line is this: it is true. If you get a very small particle size, it becomes much easier to uptake these compounds and pass the blood-brain barrier, such that you might be able to absorb it in your stomach as opposed to your intestines, or absorb it in your mouth as opposed to your stomach. And when you are eliminating the amount of steps that you need your body to process these compounds, it becomes much more easily uptaken into our bloodstream and passing through that blood-brain barrier. So there are some companies that are really, really good at that type of technology, nano emulsions or nanoparticleizing these compounds. And there are some companies that say they are that aren't that good. So I think as the industry continues to develop, there will be some companies that emerge that are really good at this technology. And there'll be some companies that purport to be good at these technologies that are really good marketing machines. Like with any product and new method of administration, you know, you got to try them out and see which ones work the best for you. Always tread lightly though, especially with THC. If you've ever have been, I know I've been, I'm sure Josh has been on the opposite side of taking too much THC. It can be a very disconcerting and uncomfortable feeling. And unfortunately, you'll be on that ride for several hours. So, you know, always tread lightly. But in the case of nanoparticleized products or nanoemulsified products, always start with much smaller dose than you would normally take, and give yourself that requisite time, depending on if you ate and the time of day and how you feel, to feel it before taking more.
So essentially, companies that are using this new nanotechnology will be able to hopefully avoid overdosing. Is that accurate to say that, you know, the faux pas in this industry is to eat an edible, wait 10, 20 minutes, and then say, it didn't work, I'm going to eat another one. And then that's when you get that really uncomfortable heart palpitation. You're freaking out. Panic mode sets in, anxiety. And by the way, consuming CBD, there's an inverse relationship. If you have CBD, won't it bring down your high if you overdose? But can you maybe describe how that nanotechnology will maybe reduce future overdoses?
I wouldn't say it would reduce future overdoses. I would say it would make it more likely for that to occur, because people who would consume, let's say, you know, for me, 20 to 30 milligrams is my uncomfortable limit level, depending on if I've eaten and the uptake methods. If it's a drink, 20 milligrams is kind of like my limit, where if I continue to go past that in a session, I'll be the less cool version of myself, for sure. We'll need to be alone, preferably in my room, preferably with nobody around me. In the case of edibles, you know, where it takes a little bit longer for your body to process, 30 milligrams. My business partner can consume 100 or 120 milligrams, no problem. And he might be buzzed, but he's certainly going to be very functional and easily be able to do what he would normally be doing. You know, everybody reacts differently. He has a higher metabolism than me. You know, I have more what I would call dormant muscle, what others would call fat in my body. So, you know, maybe I just uptake more of it. The bottom line is, if you need less, or if in the case of nanoparticleization, where much less will give you the same effect. So in the case of, let's say, a beverage, 20 milligrams would get me there. 5 milligrams might get me there with a properly nanoparticleized product. I think it would increase the propensity for overdose. But as a manufacturer, the reason why people love it so much is you might be able to, you should be able to use much less product, or much less cannabinoids in a given product. And because the uptake method with nanoparticleizing should be able to absorb much quicker, you might be able to instead of wait 30 minutes in the case of a beverage, maybe the uptake is 5 minutes, which is what I've experienced personally. Or in the case of an edible, instead of an hour, maybe it's 20 minutes. But the idea is the uptake is much quicker, so you should be able to get efficacy much quicker, and you should need much less cannabinoids to get the same effect. So I think it's going to be opposite of what you think. People are going to overdose much more.
So they're going to get higher because it's stronger, but they're not going to take as much edibles because it's going to hit them faster. So instead of waiting 30, 40 minutes and with no effect, it's going to hit them much quicker, yet be stronger. So it'll be interesting to see.
It'll be interesting to see.